You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with broadcaster and commentator Alex Andreou and barrister and former government minister Anna Soubry. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Have you no shame? Asked the Mirror, as it says, with no hint of remorse, Suella Braverman laid a wreath at the cenotaph as she was blamed for violence on Armistice Day. The Express reports that Rishi Sunak is facing growing calls to sack his Home Secretary as he looks to reshuffle his top team. The Mail leads with Ms Braverman saying the pro-Palestinian marches are polluting the streets with hate, which she says can't go on following the violent scenes. The Sun claims the Prime Minister wants to make it easier to ban marches following the clashes on Armistice Day. The Times also leads with that, adding that Rishi Sunak will urge the Metropolitan Police Commissioner to immediately arrest protesters seen using anti-Semitic slogans. The Princess of Wales, looking visibly moved at the Remembrance Sunday service at the cenotaph, is on the front of the Metro. Hunt considers pre-Christmas tax cuts to lift Tory gloom, is the headline on the Eye, which says that Jeremy Hunt is considering cuts to inheritance tax and stamp duty in the hope of narrowing Labour's lead in the polls. The Guardian reports that thousands of babies and toddlers are being admitted to hospital in England each year with lung conditions, probably linked to damp and mould-ridden homes. The Financial Times leads with the US warning Israel not to fire on hospitals in Gaza and endanger the lives of patients. And hay fever is now a year-long menace, according to the Daily Star, which also reports on the impending Storm Debbie. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Alex Andreou and Anna Soubry. Welcome to you both. Good evening to you. Let's start with the Mirror and the question posed there towards Suella Braverman. Have you no shame? Anna?
And the answer is clearly not, because we know, although it's not on the front page, and I don't think it's on, but it's sort of referred to in some of them, we know that she's put out this tweet today, and there are three parts to it. And it is quite incredible, because it's almost a complete, not contradiction, well, I suppose it is a contradiction of what the Met Police said yesterday. And the Met Police were quite rightly concentrating on what happened at the cenotaph when this group of fascist right-wing thugs decided, who apparently were counter-protesters, except that actually the people they picked on were the police. So they had a full-scale fight with the police, behaved absolutely abominably. But Braverman has turned all her guns on the pro-Palestinian march, where there were clearly incidents, and there were anti-Semitic. We've seen them. You've been covering some of the posters and some of the chants and so on and so forth. But I think this is really what this front page is all about, is what's coming this week. And what may well come this week is either she's sacked, and if there is any sense in this government, and if Rishi Sunak has any strength, he'll sack her, or she's going to jump because there will be this Supreme Court judgment on the plans by the government...
On Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday, to send people off who are coming here to claim asylum and refuge off to Rwanda. So it's really, this week is kind of setting the scene for this week.
Alex, do you think she's climbing down slightly in that she was very complimentary about the police handling of the demonstrations?
Slightly, yes.
This is in the tweet.
The tweets took a long time to come. They came in the late afternoon. A lot of people were wondering, is she going to say something? Rishi Sunak had already put out a statement which didn't mention the police, didn't thank the police, which a lot of people thought was quite odd. And then those tweets came. And yes, they do represent a softening of the language, but they also represent a focus on her saying effectively, I was right, instead of, accepting any responsibility for the fact that instead of cooling things down, She raised the temperature, which is not what a Home Secretary is meant to do. I mean, I would invite your viewers to ask a very, very simple question. On Friday, would Suella Braverman be hoping for a quiet, uneventful weekend during which her fears proved unfounded, or would she be hoping for a little bit of trouble? And if you answer that question in a particular way, then you have to ask, how can we have a Home Secretary who's hoping for a little bit of disorder?
And then the other question
it seems perverse, doesn't it?
You're absolutely right, Alex. The other question is, was Tommy Robinson and those thugs, were they always planning on Friday? Were they going to go to the cenotaph?
Look,
until she spoke, were they
to be fair to Braverman, they do show up every year. Not like that.
And I think they were planning, actually, before she'd spoken.
Like I said, they show up every year, but it seems to me that there's a difference in the permission you're given. If the Home Secretary comes out and effectively says, I don't trust the police to handle this, then, of course, you deputise all those people who see themselves as protectors of the cenotaph. That's what you're doing.
And a lot of their anger was directed directly at the police. But to your point, the last part of Suella Braverman's tweet is telling, in which she says, this can't go on week by week. The streets of London are being polluted by hate violence and anti-Semitism. Members of the public are being mobbed and intimidated. Jewish people in particular feel threatened. Further action is necessary. That's how she ended her slew of tweets. Let's move on to the Financial Times and this story about housing pressure pushing more into rough sleeping, something which the Home Secretary has also commented on, suggesting that rough sleeping is a choice, a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Anna?
Well, yes, and what this is that the number of rough sleepers are going up, and unprecedented levels, according to charities, with the number of people, they say, by soaring rents. And we're finding people who wouldn't have found themselves on the streets, not those with a long history of trauma, but those who had a house and a job and quite often still have a job but can't hold a roof over their head, says one charity. It is not a lifestyle choice. It's an absolute national scandal, and it can and must be sorted.
If I can share something personal, I'm someone who has experienced homelessness, including a short spell of rough sleeping in the past. And I can promise you it's not a lifestyle choice. But what I can also tell you is that a lot of people will prefer to stay on the streets compared to particular kinds of shelter. You know, there are lots of people with particular mental health conditions, on the spectrum, who cannot share a room with another 12 adult men and will actually prefer to find a quiet corner somewhere because they will get more of a rest and they will feel less threatened. Homeless shelters can be quite intimidating places where there's a lot of alcohol and substance abuse. And so a lot of people do feel safer. They make a choice, but they make a choice between two completely rotten options. And so to take that and turn it against them and say, well, you know, it's your choice to be on the street, so I'll take your tent. It's cruel.
In effect, what you're saying, it isn't really a choice. It is
and I have seen people sleeping rough with an alarm set next to them because they have to go to work the next morning. It's not unusual. It really isn't unusual.
Wow.
I was fully employed when I was homeless.
Thank you for sharing
I just couldn't get out of that hole, you know, because you need a little capital.
Yeah, definitely not a lifestyle choice by any means. Staying with Suella Braverman, actually, and she's the subject of speculation about a reshuffle potentially as early as tomorrow morning. Anna, what do we think?
Well, I mean, your political correspondents are better placed than I, but I mean, you just only have to look at the Daily Express to see that is she going to survive a reshuffle. So there is a lot of rumour and speculation that Rishi Sunak is going to get rid of her by having this reshuffle. And I think he was meant to be having it some time ago and it got put off. I know I've said it, but I'll just repeat it and then over to Alex. But I mean, he should have sacked her last week.
Yes.
I mean, some say he should have sacked her after she'd made those comments about rough sleep.
Some say he shouldn't have hired her 6 days after she was sacked for a serious security breach.
But, you know, it shows how incredibly weak his weakness is, because he's in hock to the right of the party. So we will see.
Alex, does she want to be sacked, actually? Because there is that theory as well, isn't there?
Yes.
I mean, I think, yes, part of her wants to be sacked, but she probably also wants to go on her own terms, which is, I think, why if he doesn't sack her on Monday, she will probably resign if she gets an unfavourable decision on the Rwanda plan from the Supreme Court on Wednesday, because that way she can throw up her hands and say, you know, those judges are not letting me do the job in the way that I want to do it. I hope Sunak can muster the courage to sack her tomorrow, because these things matter. Timings matter. We are finding out from the COVID inquiry at the moment how these dysfunction and this factionalized arguing affects government when there's a crisis going on. What happens if there's another Salisbury, touch wood? What happens if there's another Salisbury on Tuesday and she's still in post? Will Sunak be able to trust that she's playing with a straight bat? Will she have his back?
No, exactly.
All these questions
do you see what I mean?
remain
When it comes to
unanswered
security,
for us
it
tonight.
matters.
But it's all about her ambition. That'd be very clear about that. She's short on ability, but big on ambition. And it's all about...
Stinging, Anna.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, you know, you just despair.
Anna,
you
and
can't
Alex...
imagine this in any other government. Well, perhaps a Boris Johnson one.
OK, we'll leave it there for the moment. We're going to take a break on that note. Thank you very much for the minute. When we come back, we'll take a look at this story on the front of the Eye. Are the Tories considering pre-Christmas tax cuts? Stay with us for more on that and other stories. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, broadcaster and commentator Alex Andreou and barrister and former government minister Anna Soubry. Let's have a look at the front page of the Metro on Remembrance Day, and pictured there the, I was going to say the Princess of Wales. That is correct, isn't it? That is her title, yes. Yes, and they're saying that she's shedding a tear there for the fallen, looking quite sombre. Anna?
Yes, I mean, it's nice, isn't it, to see that... I mean, this is what Remembrance Day is all about. It is about the fallen, and their families. And that is why it happens every year, and the centre of it all is at the cenotaph. But sometimes I think we forget that right across the country, from villages, towns, people gather and they mark this day when we remember all of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for us and today, and they did give up their tomorrows for our todays. And here is, as ever, it's something that's deeply close to the royal family, because so many of them serve in our armed forces, and it's a lovely photograph, and it's good that, you know, we're getting away from Suella Braverman and actually talking about what this is really about on Remembrance Sunday.
Alex?
I was reading the Manchester Guardian's description of the very first Remembrance Sunday on 11th of November 1919. And it reads, "It speaks of a hush that spread and deepened and became so pronounced as to impress one with a sense of audibility. It was a silence which contained pain." And I just wonder whether we could leave the factionalism to one side for that one day and just go back to feeling that collective sense of loss that means we want to say never again. And it puts so many things currently going on in our news into perspective, I think.
Indeed. And that's a beautiful description there of the 2-minute silence that was held. Let's have a look at the Eye, turning to politics now. And Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are considering cuts to inheritance tax and stamp duty. Something the Chancellor said that there would be no cuts not so long ago, but seems to have changed his mind, Anna.
Yes, I'm surprised at the eye running this story because when you actually read into it, it says, Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt considering cuts to inheritance tax and stamp duty in a bid to appease restive Conservative MPs. Well, I mean, I don't think that is going to settle the problems within the Conservative Party, but it's very speculative, this. And I would be surprised if Jeremy Hunt does actually find himself in a position where actually he can cut taxes because our public services are in a perilous, terrible state, and until we grow the economy in the way that it needs to be grown, it's difficult to see how we're going to be able to afford to continue the meagre funding given the inadequacies and the big challenges we face in our public services. So the idea that we're going to cut taxes, I think, is for the birds.
But there has been speculation for a number of days that this might be the case, Alex, though, hasn't there?
Yes, and I find it very interesting that everything is framed in the way of how will Tory backbenchers react to it, what do they want, might this nudge the polls in the Tories' favour? And completely absent from this entire conversation is this the right thing for the economy? Is this the right thing for the country? Not just in this debate, but in so many debates going on at the moment. Everything is interpreted through the lens of what's good for the Conservative Party, what might give them a shot at the next election. Well, how about doing the right thing? That might give them a shot at the next election. I mean, I'm no political strategist, but it seems to me that this wandering from thing to thing at the behest of some backbencher is what has killed their chances at the next election, because people see them as a party without an ideological core anymore.
We have about 20 seconds, Anna, for you to tell us about the sneezing dog on the front page of the Daily Star.
Well, it's good to see that we're now getting to the serious part of the newspapers, because according to the Star, perfect storms. I'm totally confused, because this story is about the fact that there's going to be another storm coming with 500-mile tempests to hit the UK. At the same time, we are going to suffer 12-month, all-year-round hay fever. And more important than that, according to that photograph, dogs are going to get it as well.
We're going to leave it there, that dogs do get hay fever. Alex and Anna, for the moment, thank you so much.